I think it's pretty obvious that I don't want anything to do with the family business. I love to create art. It's what I do. Well, now my father is threatening to cut me off, simply because I don't want to be a part of the family business. He wants Theodore, my annoying brother, to take over everything. Well, you know what? If he only knew that his golden child son was stealing from the company, I don't know what he would do. I'm deciding if I should tell him, but you know what? I don't even know if he would believe me. I'm 24 and female, and I've moved out of my parents' house without saying a word. I always felt overshadowed by my brother, half-brother. Let's call him Theodore, because father always shows him support, love, and care, while I felt like an illegitimate child, and I don't know when it started or why it became so deep. But no matter how hard I tried to get my father's attention, it never worked. All I get is the opposite, and I just end up feeling ignored and unimportant. Every effort I made, every piece of myself I showed, it's all just bounced off him like I was invisible, and I just got tired. For context, Theodore and I grew up in a wealthy household. But I would say, despite all the overflowing foods on the table, all the latest technologies in cars, and all those luxurious clothing, our house was, or is rather, emotionless, from my point of view at least. Inside the walls of our house, there was nothing. Our father is a businessman who prioritizes success and legacy over emotional connection. You get the point. Maybe I was foolish to believe that he would change. I blamed it on a lot of things. Maybe he was broken after my mother died giving birth to me. Or maybe all the love and softness in the house died with her. Sometimes I convinced myself it was because I was a woman in a man's world. Maybe he resented me for even existing, who knows? I stopped asking questions years ago because the answers didn't matter. What mattered was what I felt, and what I felt was unwanted. To get to the point, ever since I was a child, I never felt emotions from father. He always had Theodore. Theodore this, Theodore that. Theodore was different. Golden child since day one. Father married Theodore's mother, Ivy, a year after mom passed. Unfortunate, father discovered that Ivy was a cheater, using his money. So as soon as Theodore was born, father divorced Ivy. Thanks to a prenuptial agreement, of course, she didn't get a single dollar. So ever since we were just babies, it was just us and father. So from then on, it was the three of us, father, Theodore, and me. Except it never felt like three, it was more like 2.5, a family of Theodore and father with me, orbiting around the edges like a speck of dust. Father poured everything he had into Theodore. Attention, time, praise, it didn't matter what Theodore did. Good grades, bad grades, an A, B instead of an A. Father turned into a celebration. Meanwhile, my accomplishments were shrugged off like they simply did not count. I remember the first time I realized it. Theodore and I were in middle school. There was a talent showcase, and I spent weeks working on my painting. It was an entire mural of the sunset over a lake that felt magic. I stood beside it, proud, ready for father to see it. Theodore, meanwhile, handed in some half-baked business proposal on how to sell lemonade to kids at recess. I'll never forget how father clapped him on the shoulder as I saw his eyes beaming with pride, saying Theodore had business sense and calling my mural cute. That was the first time I felt it, and it never stopped. I got top honors in high school while Theodore came in second place in some soccer tournament. Guess who got the big celebration? Our situation was always like that because father believed that Theodore would carry his name as a successful businessman. But even after all that, I kept trying. I don't know why. Some pathetic part of me still wanted his approval, so I entered his business school. I figured that's what he wants, right? I tried so hard to excel, and I did. For a while, Dad was seeing me, but it's not the same as what he gave to Theodore. I didn't mind it, because finally, I was being appreciated, and so I just did my best. I was always the top in our class, but I couldn't lie to myself anymore because I just knew deep down inside that it wasn't for me. Art is what I want and need. So after my second year in business school, I dropped out and enrolled in an art school. And I could say that I've never felt happier. I felt so seen and validated, like all I did was right. I realized I didn't need father's validation, but it didn't last long. It just feels different when the validation comes from your parents. Nevertheless, I stayed in art school. Now, I just graduated 3 months ago, and of course I invited father to the graduation. I'm top of my class, by the way, and I would also like to mention that Theodore graduated at the same time as me, thanks to the 2 years I spent in business school. Remember that? Well, that's important to the story. Anyways, I don't know if fate is playing tricks on me or something, but the dates of our graduation are the same. What a coincidence, right? Thank goodness when I found out that my ceremony would come second after Theodore's, so father doesn't have to choose. So yeah, he agreed. Imagine the joy I felt at that time, lol. On the day of the graduation, I was constantly calling him and Theodore because they weren't at the venue. Theodore's ceremony was supposed to be done, and I kept glancing at my phone, and my heart was pounding faster with each passing second. Both of them were not answering, and the ceremony was done when I saw a similar face. I was really hoping it was father, but all I could see was Theodore's smug face. According to him, father canceled last minute because of work obligations and sent Theodore in his place. The worst part, Theodore rolled his eyes the entire time. I was trying to understand why father could not sacrifice just a few hours of his life for the most important day of my life. He was telling me it was pointless to expect father to just show up for something like this. I guess he's right. Well, that really hit me. I mean, I knew I should have stopped expecting father, but can you blame me? Growing up, that's all I knew. That constant cycle of hope, reaching and being let down, it didn't matter how many times I told myself to stop, to give up on the idea of him seeing me, really, as somebody worth his time. Deep down, I still hoped. Every small achievement, every moment of pride in myself came with this instinct to share it with him. Like maybe this time he would say, "I'm proud of you." Like maybe this time I would be enough. But the truth is that hope wasn't even about him anymore. It was about me, about needing to prove that myself and I was not invisible, that I was enough, and that I was not wasting my life chasing dreams he didn't think mattered. My art became my everything because it was the one place I could control, the one place where my existence had meaning. But what can I do? I can't control what he feels. Don't worry, I wasn't too stupid. I knew that one day I would learn my lesson, and that lesson happened 2 weeks ago. So after about a month, I completed the biggest painting of my career. A custom piece for a world-renowned client, as I like to say. I'm not gonna lie. It sold for a jaw-dropping amount, something so big I could not stop smiling. Well, of course, I told everyone, especially father, expecting that maybe he would be proud of me this time, and you know what he said? "That's nice, but it won't pay like a real job." I'm sure if you were in my position, you would be hurt as hell. I went to my room and cried, feeling like I was 10 years old, again, standing next to the damn mural. I wanted to scream at him that I did have a job, that my art paid more than his precious company sometimes did, and that people from the world's wealthiest circle were paying millions to have my paintings on their walls. But what would be the point? He never listened, just like he hadn't for the last 2 decades. A week later, Theodore signed a deal with some investors for father's business, so they threw a party for him. A whole celebration with champagne, speeches, and, well, Theodore standing front and center like some sort of prodigy. As I went inside the party's venue, it hit me. No matter what I did, no matter how much I succeeded, I would never, ever be Theodore. So yeah, I guess that was my final straw. I'm done being a child that's longing for their parents' attention. That night, I made the decision. I packed up my bags, grabbed my essentials, and left without a word. I didn't even cry. I was just so numb and used to feeling that crying felt like an unnecessary thing to do. Anyways, I'll update you. Update number 1. It's me again. I hope you missed me. I'm back for an update, so let's get into it. It's been a while. I wanted to thank those who commented, especially those who supported and guided me. And thank you for your sympathies. I appreciate the people who commented and DM'd me to help me financially. I don't even have the words, so seriously, thank you. While I'm so grateful for the offers, rest assured that I'm now very capable of standing on my own. Very capable, actually. Still, I can't express how much your kindness meant when I felt like my world was closing in. I wanted to address some of the comments because I know it's been ages and my reply is long overdue, but I still want to answer it. To the people saying I was selfish or that I should have tried harder, well, thanks, but no thanks. I've heard enough of that my entire life. I didn't write my story looking for pity, and I didn't move out because I was throwing a tantrum or attention seeking. I left because I had to. I left because there's a point where trying harder just means burying yourself under someone else's expectations until you can't breathe. You don't get to call me ungrateful when you don't know what it's like to spend your whole life feeling like you're nothing. It's been years since I walked out of the house, and honestly, best decision of my life. I spent months throwing myself into my art and finally letting myself paint whatever the hell I wanted, without hearing a voice in my head saying it wasn't good enough, or important enough. I didn't expect it, but my work took off in ways I couldn't even dream of. Remember my first client? Well, they got me connections, and one thing led to another, and those connections turned into doors I didn't even know existed. From there, it was like a domino effect. Before I knew it, I was booking commissions for pieces worth more than Theodore's overpriced car. And you know what? I'm just glad that I'm confident enough that I moved on. I wasn't fighting to prove myself to anyone. I wasn't begging for approval or scrambling to earn a pat on the back. I was just me, doing what I love and being darn good at it. But of course, life doesn't stay perfect forever. About 6 months ago, I was in the elevator of a new building where I recently bought a penthouse. I've been checking it out, and I've decided to buy a few units. It was nothing flashy, just places I could rent out for passive income and, well, investing in my future, right? I was scrolling through my phone, minding my business, when the elevator door opened, and someone walked in. Theodore. He looked the same. He was wearing a, tailored suit and that stupid smug face. For a second, he didn't even recognize me, and I could see his gaze turn to the elevator panel, where he saw that I was going to one of the lower floors, and I wish I could describe the look on his face because he looked like he was about to choke on his own laughter. Oh, didn't think I'd see you here. Guess after all this time, you finally saved enough to buy a unit on that floor. Not gonna lie, his words hurt more than I could care to admit. I wanted to snap back and tell him exactly how wrong he was, but I just stared at him. Theodore, of course, had an apartment on the upper floor. I didn't respond. What's the point? Let him think whatever he wanted. I learned a long time ago that his words were not worth my energy. Also, I'm not the one who's in the penthouse, so anything that he said didn't matter. Still, when I got home that night, I couldn't shake it. Even after all this time, after everything I'd accomplished, he still had the power to make me feel small. Anyways, after that night, I didn't think much about it. Fortunately, I was always in my apartment doing paintings that I didn't have to bump into old Theodore. Life moved on, and so did I. I kept working on building my reputation. I painted for billionaires, collectors, everything, who treated me like art treasure, who paid me sums of money that would have made father's head spin. I felt like I was living the life, but then the rumors started to circulate, baby. Here we go. At first, I heard whispers here and there about how father's company was struggling to the point that some investors were pulling out and deals were starting to fall through. I didn't even pay much attention, and it's not my problem. I'd spent so long trying to remove myself from their world, I wasn't about to get dragged back into it again. Update number 2. Finally, I found out who was the culprit. Theodore. I couldn't believe it. After everything father did for him, this is what he returns. I endured father's mistreatment for more than half my life just for him to act like that. He was everything to father. Theodore was his golden child, and father built his company from the ground up, so I don't know how he would react if he found out about this, It took weeks of digging and sleepless nights to confirm what I suspected. Theodore had been secretly siphoning company funds for years because he was funneling cash into risky investments and high-stake ventures, maybe to prove himself and his pride and ego. And when those investments didn't work, he started covering his track. And that wasn't even the worst of it. He had been embezzling money, millions, really. And it was all to fund his mother's luxurious lifestyle. I'll get to it. Her designer handbags, 5-star vacations, glittery charity galas, all of it was paid for with stolen money, and we thought that he didn't have contact with his mom. While Theodore burned through the company money like a kid let loose in a candy store, father sat oblivious, or maybe he just chose not to see it. After all, this was the golden boy, the favorite, the son who could do no wrong. Well, I sit with the information for hours. I couldn't believe it. The same father who dismissed me, belittled me, and made me feel like I wasn't enough had poured everything into Theodore, and for what? For the boy to ruin everything he built? I wish I could say I stayed attached, but I didn't care. I mean, my life is beyond imaginable right now. I told myself over and over, it's not my problem. I have my own life, my own success, my own peace, but that would be a lie. Late at night, when I stared at the city lights from my penthouse, the guilt gnawed at me. Despite everything, despite the years of rejection and hurt, I couldn't stand the thought of watching my father lose everything. Not like this. So now I'm planning something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to an investment firm I trusted and asked if it was possible to funnel a huge chunk of my money into father's company, which would be enough to stabilize it temporarily and prevent the immediate bankruptcy. I mean, from a business perspective, it's just a business decision, right? It has nothing to do with the sentiment or family loyalty. But deep down, I knew that's not true. Anyways, I plan to do it anonymously. I think. I don't know. Update number 3. It's been months. I know many of you have reservations about me investing in father's company. I had my own too, but what's done is done. I understand that many of you are just concerned with what will happen to my money or scared that Theodore might do something wrong with it again. That's why I decided to reconnect with him, so this way, I can somehow see what would happen to the money I'll invest. So I halted my projects and went into our family house unannounced. The house still looked sad, but this time it felt more lifeless. And father, he looked frail, thinner than I'd remembered, with streaks of gray in his hair that weren't, there before. His commanding presence had faded, replaced by something smaller. I wanted to cry, but I quickly pushed it aside. Anyways, after weeks of settling in with the family again and careful planning and endless second-guessing, I went through with it. The investment was anonymous, of course, and I made sure my name stayed out of it. The funds were transferred enough to keep the company afloat and enough to stop the immediate financial collapse. I thought I could step away and leave them to clean up the mess after 2 weeks of transferring the money. On top of that, I planned to be public about my art. So I would get pretty busy, but I didn't expect what came next. A day before my quote schedule moving out from their life again, I hired a PI again to dig into the company's finances. Something didn't add up. The money I'd invested, only 3/4 of it was accounted for, the rest gone. I felt my stomach drop. Not again. Not after everything. It didn't take long to uncover the truth that Theodore is at it again, siphoning funds like it was his personal piggy bank. He's gotten craftier, though, covering his tracks before he did it, but not well enough. I had the proof that I needed, of course. Telling the truth to father was the next move. I thought surely this time he would see the truth, especially since I had evidence. You know what happened? Instead of gratitude or even curiosity, father dismissed my claims outright, insisting that Theodore's recent accusation of a major investor was proof of his loyalty and competence. He saved the company, so stop making false accusations and fabricating evidence. You're just bitter because you've never understood what it takes to run a business. I should have expected none the less from you. I didn't have the time or energy to argue with this man. My public debut art exhibition was in just a few days, and I need to focus on what matters. The exhibition, which happened last week, turned out to be a success. Despite the recognition I got from the public, I still felt empty. I realized how little it meant to my family. Father did not acknowledge it, not even with a cursory text or congratulations. Meanwhile, Theodore's investor, which is me, by the way, the deal was celebrated with a grand old party again. I couldn't believe this. I just spent weeks with father, and now I'm longing for his attention again. Well, that's my breaking point. Later that night, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I couldn't keep doing this. I need to stop chasing approval from a man who would never give it. Something inside me snapped. I went to the party. It's time to stop this nonsense. There, I confronted father and gave him an ultimatum. Choose to support me and Theodore equally or lose me forever. You know what he said? You've done nothing for this family. Why would I waste my time? Yep. The room went silent, and all I could hear was Theodore's smug chuckle. That's it. Final straw. I didn't even bother responding. I just walked out of that party with my head held high. If they could not respect me, I would make sure they feared me, and if father and Theodore wanted to make me a villain, fine. I'll show you how dangerous a villain can be when he has nothing to lose. Update number 4. It's been a long while, and I know I owe you an update. After that party, I knew I could not just walk away. I wasn't going to let, them mock me, dismiss me, and keep getting away with it. If they wanted to make me the villain, fine. I'll be a villain. A villain they'll never forget. The first step was patience. For weeks, I let my PI dig up every skeleton Theodore had buried. And wow, I'm just going to say that he did not disappoint, baby. But I didn't stop there. Through proxies, of course, and myself, I started buying shares of the company, and little by little, I built my way up and ensured that nobody could trace it back to me. I also asked many of my clients to buy chunks in shares too and promised them that they would earn more than the capital they came with. Every share we bought felt like another brick in the foundation of my revenge. Then the annual shareholder meeting. Right? The boardroom is full of people I know. Charming Father and Theodore, of course, who was soaking up all the attention while Father sat at the side. Once I entered the room, it was silence. Theodore's back was facing me and only his laughter was heard. As soon as he saw me, he asked me, "What the hell am I doing here?" But I didn't mind him, sat on an empty chair. The presentation started as planned, and Theodore was bragging about the company's turnaround and how his leadership and skills saved the day. But then the slide steered away from Theodore, what he was saying, of course. The technical team is on my side, duh. I mean, how could they resist? They're gonna be my employees soon anyways. It starts small. You could hear the murmurs in the room as people began to notice. And as soon as the evidence of Theodore's siphoning, embezzlement, and whatnot on the screen, the room exploded as investors were furious and board members were screaming. Theodore was a panic, and his confident, smug face was gone out the window and replaced by his wild-eyed look of fear. He tried to deny it, of course, but the evidence is there. Even Father, for all of his stubbornness, could not defend him. I wasn't done. With the shares I'd quietly accumulated, I revealed myself as a major shareholder and that most shareholders are my people. The look on their face when I walked into the emergency boardroom? Priceless. Wow. Anyways, I voted to remove them both from the board, which is a decision backed by other shareholders as well. Who wants to save the company from thieves? You know, my family. I mean, who would want leaders who steal money from a company and one who didn't even do anything about it? At that moment, all I could think of were the words of Cersei Lannister. Power is power. Now, the company is mine. Everything they're so proud of is mine, and they couldn't do anything about it. I feel so free. Not because I got revenge. Okay, maybe a little. But because I finally stopped chasing after their approval. And you know what? I don't think I'm coming back for an update. Tell me, what would you have done? Final update. First of all, I do want to tell you guys what happened to my family. I wasn't going to update. Well, Father kicked Theodore out, but it took him so long to finally muster up the courage to take him to court. Theodore was held accountable for his actions, and he was put in jail for everything he's done. From what I've heard, he's still serving time because he didn't have the money for bail. Serves him right. As for Father, he still has a few shares left, and he tried starting a new one, but he failed. Then didn't even try again. As for Theodore's mother, well, I don't know. What can I do about her? Nothing. I'm just relieved to know that there's no one else to support her life right now. I heard she was smart with her money, so yeah, you get the point. See ya.